Okay, we will now move along to Craig Noble. Craig, you should be ready to go, and you're a co-host, so you can present.
Cool. Thank you very much. Appreciate it. Let's see if technology is going to agree with me today. Let's see. Share screen. I would like to share. Moment of truth. Are you seeing my presentation?
Yep.
Awesome.
It's up and look good.
Cool. Let's see. There we go. Okay, cool. So, well, thank you very much for inviting me to talk a little bit about SITC, the Smuggling Interdiction and Trade Compliance Program within PPQ. My name is Craig Noble. I am the National Policy Manager for the program. And for anyone that's not aware, the SITC program is kind of, I view it as the, look at that, my notes are showing. How about that? This is where this never works the way it's supposed to.
Yeah. If you go to end or display settings, it might be in there as well.
Swap. Let's see. What are you seeing now? Are you seeing the same thing?
Yeah,
cool.
just
so
your
you're just
screen.
seeing the presentation,
so
not my notes?
Correct.
Excellent. My director is looking out for me, so I appreciate that. But anyway, so where was I talking about SITC? Yeah, so I view SITC as kind of the last line of defense on the safeguarding continuum. You know, everything from overseas programs to our ports of entry and CBP and PPQ doing the work they do. SITC is really the boots on the ground in the United States, and they're the folks in your neighborhood making sure that prohibited product and you know, smuggled goods and that kind of stuff aren't getting out into your community. So I view it as vital. That's part of the reason I'm the national policy manager for it. And yeah, well, I'm just going to give you a quick rundown on what we have been up to, some of the drier details about staffing, that kind of stuff, and then kind of looking to the future and yeah, what the future looks like for the SITC program. So covered this already a little bit here, just operational updates, staffing, COVID-19 impacts, which, you know, that has been something across the board for everyone over the last year and a half. A little bit of an e-commerce overview, team expansion, agency working groups, and industry outreach. I do not want to step on Dr. Nicole Russo's toes here. She's going to be doing a bit of a deep dive on the agency's e-commerce initiatives tomorrow. So please stay tuned to that. Shoot all your hard questions to her. And yeah, I'm just going to be kind of focusing more on the operational changes that have impacted the team. So in a nutshell, we have some new staff for the SITC program. We've gotten 2 new internet team analysts, which is great, especially right now, especially everything that's gone on in the last year and a half, which we'll kind of talk about in a little bit. We have a new SITC national operations manager, so kind of my peer position within field operations and PPQ, Charlie Citrone. And Charlie comes to us with a wealth of knowledge. He's worked on AQI programs and domestic programs within PPQ and is just a phenomenal addition to the team, which is just great. I've enjoyed working with him already. We have gotten, yep, 2 new of our internet analysts are joining us as well. And let's see, Luke Jackson is one of them, a SITC officer out of San Francisco. And then Heather Malone, who came to us from CBP as an ag specialist with experience on both coasts. So great additions to the team. It makes the SITC program a stronger program when we have that kind of diversity and, you know, honestly, if we get the experience from the folks out in the field. Let's see. Beyond that, we've moved to a more virtual world as far as training goes, which is great because now our officers, our new officers coming in, get the training they need much quicker. and are able to like be out there in the field doing what they need to do and supporting the mission. And beyond that, though, we really haven't seen a market change on as far as our officers and supervisors go. The work unit is still the same, so which is great, and that really helps us kind of be primed as we, we're not fully out of the woods on COVID-19. However, as we are looking towards the future, we are well poised to adapt to kind of what that future looks like as far as the experience and the manpower, which is great. And just to illustrate that a little bit, I'm not going to linger too long on this one here, but just to give you an idea of how much COVID has impacted the SITC world, 2019 was a banner year for us as far as market surveys and seizures and traces. And you can see that on the left-hand side of the chart. COVID obviously had a big impact, and this graph doesn't do a great job showing it. However, comparing apples to apples, so January 1 through July of 2020 compared to this year, we're already seeing an upswing in surveys completed and seizures conducted, and that upswing is about 15 to 20%. So this year, we're going to have an improvement over 2020, rebounding from COVID-19. And 2019 set a pretty high bar as far as what we're shooting for. But in the next year or two, we're predicting a full recovery and back to I don't want to say business as usual, but whatever the new business as usual is. So moving right along. Now, e-commerce. This is the fun stuff, if you can consider it the fun stuff. It's given me a lot more gray hairs, especially over the last year and a half. So the PPQ Deputy Administrator, Osama Alissi, spoke about this yesterday, about PPQ's response to the unsolicited seed issue from last year and the huge strides that we've made to address this with e-commerce companies like Amazon and Etsy and eBay. This has been a huge undertaking for PPQ and SITC. For over 10 years now that has been addressing this. And, as e-commerce has evolved, the team has evolved. And, we're still looking to continue supporting the agency's efforts there. And then again, I'm going to plug Dr. Nicole Russo is going to again be taking a deep dive tomorrow onto that, specifically PPQ strategic initiative on e-commerce as well as USDA's focus on the issue. So stay tuned to that. The big thing that has been evident over COVID-19 is kind of the blending of the traditional like brick and mortar stores and e-commerce worlds, right? So many stores have gotten into the e-commerce world because they need to, when stores were shut down and mask mandates and all that kind of stuff, people still needed to buy stuff. So there's been a huge blending of that. That line's become much fuzzier, and COVID just exacerbated all of that. The great thing is that from a SITC point of view, we had great timing adding on our 2 new internet team analysts, and we have a phenomenal analyst core already that have supported many of the other initiatives. Craig Regelbrugge talking about Boxwood. They were super helpful in tracing all of that material out across the country. But what we're seeing now is the traditional boots on the ground survey and the e-commerce internet tracing work is really having to work hand in hand to deal with these situations as they evolve. They're not separate issues anymore. Individual brick and mortar stores versus e-commerce stores, and they've been, our analyst team and the SITC team in general have been doing a really phenomenal job dealing with this around the country, especially given COVID and everything. At the end of the day, e-commerce is here to stay, right? So one of the other great success stories that we've had are these are relatively new, where we have a SITC analyst and a CBP joint targeting teams. Specifically, this one, our pilot one was out of Long Beach in California. It has been wildly successful. You know, the reaching across agencies has been a really great experience for us, and it's also produced a lot of really good results. So even specifically earlier this month, a targeting effort found a shipment of about 1,200 kilos of smuggled animal products that were originally coming in through Long Beach and then got rerouted up through Canada. And between CBP and SITC PPQ analysts, we were able to identify where that was going and intercept it at the port of entry in North Dakota. So really phenomenal team effort there, and something that we're looking to develop and expand on as we move forward into the future here. Part of that is SITC is adapting to this new reality of the e-commerce world and establishing new collaborative approaches to what we've been dealing with across agencies, agency working groups. So these are relatively new, at least in the e-commerce world, collaborative efforts to address like regulatory issues that we come across. Mothballs is one that jumps to my mind. And so that's really where SITC has become the lead in coordinating those efforts and the responses, whether it's between Fish and Wildlife Services, Customs and Border Patrol, and PPQ. And what else? Let's see. Industry outreach. Osama already spoke about outreach with the e-commerce companies yesterday, but that's an ongoing thing. It's not a one and done. We've been working tirelessly to educate e-commerce companies across the board. The big ones obviously being Amazon, Etsy, and eBay, but there's a lot of smaller actors and players in this world. A lot of brick and mortar stores that are getting their first footing into the e-commerce world that we need to reach out to and make sure that they're aware of the regulatory requirements on their behalf, and make sure that also outreach to the public and the people that are purchasing these products to understand what their responsibilities are, and make sure that they are fully aware of what they're purchasing and where it's coming from. Not a small task, but one that we are working diligently with between CBP and other agencies across the federal government. And lastly, engaging globally. So e-commerce is obviously not it is a global business, and it needs global solutions to kind of deal with the issues that we are all experiencing. The unsolicited seed incident from last summer was not something that was unique to the United States. So we have been working with the IPPC on global e-commerce standards. One of our SITC analysts is on that team working to develop those. This is obviously not going to be this is going to be a several year process, but we're excited about the potential, the positives that come out of this. It'll be a great thing. So let's see, a couple of examples just to kind of hammer home the interaction and the collaboration that's been going on with SITC and PPQ and CBP and our state counterparts. We all remember the unsolicited seeds from 2020, waking nightmare for some of us. But PPQ has made huge progress because of this incident with the e-commerce industry, and getting them aware of what the regulatory responsibilities are and requirements, and getting them on board with what needs to happen in order to bring propagated material into the country the correct way. And so we have that outreach has been incredible. We have developed new new connections with different players all over the e-commerce world. And SITC is really poised at the middle of that and pulling that all together to make PPQ and APHIS's response to any of these incidences as they happen a much stronger one. Speaking of mothballs, this was our recent one earlier this year. That PPQ and SITC took what we learned from unsolicited seeds and really hammered this home. We were able to hit the ground running when we first got word that there were zebra mussels in these mothballs, which was back March 2nd, and we were able to get the situation really wrapped up pretty efficiently. And just as an example here's one of our little zebra mussel guys hanging out in the mothballs. But yeah, just PPQ took those lessons from unsolicited seeds, and we were able to work collaboratively with Fish and Wildlife Services, CBP, and across PPQ to really get the situation under control. And that's pulling product from online, that's working with industry to pull the product off the shelves, that's educating the industry themselves, the public. I'm trying to think of the word. Enthusiast groups, hobby groups, that sort of stuff on what was going on here, and it was really phenomenal. But I'm going to wrap up here, and just these kind of situations are going to continue to happen, and PPQ is still going to be at the heart of these responses when it comes to propagated materials, and SITC is really going to be the boots on the ground for that. As e-commerce and brick and mortar businesses continue to blend, we're going to continue working hand in hand with CBP and our other agencies and state regulators as well to get these responses coordinated and pulled together quickly. So again, SITC is the leading edge when it comes to that kind of interagency coordination. And despite the challenges of COVID, SITC is really poised to take the lessons of the last year and a half and run with it and adapt to this new reality of e-commerce and a global marketplace. So with that,
Craig,
how was I doing on time?
One
Forgot to set my
question
timer.
Sure. What do you think about the Atlantic Monthly report on the unsolicited seeds? And there's a link there. I don't know if you know anything about that or if you have any comments about that.
I have not read the article yet, but I certainly will. Yeah, I know there's been a lot of interest in the unsolicited seeds and our response to it. But having not read it, though, I'm not going to give an off-the-cuff answer there, but definitely something that I'll look into. So, any other questions, though?
There's nothing in the chat. Does anybody else have questions?
All right.
Sounds good.
Thank you very much. I do appreciate it.